We did our Making Waves Quilt As You Go table runner. Now we're going to do the same table runner, only we're not going to do Quilt As You Go, and it's a little bit different. I'm not even going to say simpler because the Quilt As You Go was very simple, very beginner friendly. I started with this Making Waves pattern that Missouri Star Quilt Company is giving you a free download of. The free download and the fabric that I'm using are both linked in the caption. Go through the steps, get the free pattern. Maybe it's not something you want to make today, but you might want to make it in 6 weeks, 6 months, or 6 years. And either way, you'll have it. So grab your pattern and let's get started. My pattern told me that I needed 10 sets of matching 5-inch squares. So I have 10 sets. 1, 2, 3, you get the idea. Then one set I was supposed to cut down to 4.5 inches, which I did. And now I have 10 pieces. And I also needed 10 background squares. That's these. So what we're going to do is make half square triangles. And the first thing we need to do is draw our line on the back of each one of our squares. I'm just using a Sharpie. You can use whatever you want. This is not going to show. But if you're more comfortable using a fabric pen or something, that's what I want you to use. Now I'm going on and matching my pieces up that I'm going to sew to, and then just making a stack because it's easier for me this way, but you do it however you want to. I started with 10 pairs of 5-inch by 5-inch squares, and then I put them in 2 stacks. I cut one stack 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches, and the other stack I'm drawing a diagonal line from one corner to the other corner. These are going to be my half square triangles. We've drawn our line, our diagonal, down the center of each quilt block. Now we're going to sew on each side. Straight stitch, 1/4 inch seam, back stitching when you start and when you stop. And let me get you one you can see because you can't really see that one. Here's our line. I'm going to sew down this side of our line and down that side of our line. And then I'm going to cut it apart on the line that we drew. I'm going to chain piece mine, and yes, I'm going to back stitch even when I chain piece. I know lots of people don't, and it must work for them or they wouldn't do it. But y'all, my grandmother scared me. She terrified me. So if you're asking me, the answer is yes. We are always backstitching. I love half square triangle projects. I especially love to teach them to my beginner students because you can sew a half square triangle and get a million different designs from it depending on how you turn them. From a chevron to a starburst, all made with the same quilt block. They're super versatile, and whenever I'm teaching beginner students, I always cut theirs into a half square triangle and they sew 2 triangles together because sewing them this way seems to confuse them. So if what I'm doing right now is even mildly confusing, just cut your squares diagonally so you have 2 triangles and sew your triangles together. It's exactly the same thing. Okay, we've sewn them. I've cut them apart on the line that we drew, and now I'm ironing them open. I'm not ironing my seams open or even to one side. I just want my block to be flat, but I want you to iron yours however you want to. And if you're not ironing, I'm not judging you. I did so much sewing before I started ironing. Ironing does make it look better, so I'm going to iron mine, but you do yours however you want to. This is my ironing situation. Heat-resistant pad, wool mat, and this is my snazzy Oliso iron from Missouri Star Quilt Company. And it's a great iron, but the florals on it just make me happy. Now I'm going to make 2 separate blocks, and I'm going to alternate those 2 blocks. Or strips, actually, it's strips. I'm going to make 2 separate strips, and I'm going to alternate those strips. I'm going to make 5 of one and 5 of the other. But because I know I'm going to alternate them, I want to make sure that the colors that I'm choosing will be good alternated. So I think these 5 are going to be one block or strip, and these 5 are going to be the other block or strip. Now, our instructions say to make 5 that look like this, and then 5 that look like this. I'm going to do these 5 first just because it's on this side of me. So I'm going to sew this. I'm going to put this pretty side to pretty side. I'm going to line up the corners, and I'm going to stitch right here. Straight stitch, 1/4 inch seam, back stitching when you start and when you stop because my grandma said so. I'm going to open it and sew the one on the other end. After I ironed my half square triangles, I separated them into stacks. I put the 2 half square triangles that matched and the one 4.5 inch by 4.5 inch block that matched, so I could see all of the colors that I had. And because the design that I'm making needs to contrast between the 2 colors, or I want them to contrast, yours don't have to contrast if you don't want them to, but because because I wanted mine to contrast, I wanted to look at all of the different fabrics that I had. I made mine from a charm pack. It's a pack of 42 5x5 inch squares. And if you get one charm pack, there's enough there to make this table runner. Now, after I made 5 of one block or strip, now I'm making 5 of the other block or strip. And I'm making them the same way, pretty side to pretty side, straight stitch, 1/4 inch seam, back stitching when you start and when you stop. And after we do this, then we're gonna iron them and sew them together. But y'all, I'm so excited that we're making all this stuff together, and I need to be sure that you're sending me a photo of your project to hometownquiltcompany@gmail.com. Sew and tell is everybody's favorite. Now, it matters which side of your half square triangle you're sewing to your strip. I'm sewing 2 pieces together, and then I'm looking at it and laying the other piece the way that it needs to go and sew it together. Because if you get it wrong, it's all wrong. Trust me, been there, done that more times than I'm willing to admit. We have 5 block A and 5 block B. Now, we're gonna iron these, and then we're gonna lay them out in the pattern that we want our table runner to look like, so that we can see how our colors contrast each row, because you want each row to contrast so that you can see the difference in them. Now, I'm not ironing them to one side or open. I'm just ironing them flat. Y'all know me. Okay, the last time we made this, we did quilt as you go. We're not going to quilt it as you go today. We're just going to sew it together and then quilt it if we want to. But we do have 10 rows, and they alternate in color, or the way that I sewed mine they do. But I want to lay it out to make sure I like the way that it's looking, because I can move anything I want to around right now, but not so much in a few minutes. I put my clip on my top piece, and then I picked up my whole row. And now I'm gonna sew them together. I'm gonna pick this one up, and this is the top, so I know I need to sew this side. So I'm gonna turn it over like this, and I'm gonna sew right here. Straight stitch, 1/4 inch seam, back stitching when you start and when you stop, because my grandma said so. I do not square up my quilt blocks. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just telling you that I don't. I mean, I will if they're way off, but by way off, I mean like a whole inch. And when you're sewing your strips together, I want you to make your seams match. And I don't care what you have to do. Pinch it, pleat it, pull it. Just make sure those 2 seams in the center match. All right, we've sewn our centerpiece. Now we're gonna iron it and add some borders to it. This is what we have so far. Now, our pattern told us to cut some 3-inch strips. That's what we have. It says to measure the sides, the long sides of your table runner, and cut your strips that length. I'm not doing that, but if you want to, I want you to. Instead, I just cut the selvage off, and I'm just gonna lay it pretty side to pretty side, and I'm gonna sew all the way down. When I get to the bottom, I'm gonna cut it off, and then I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side. Straight stitch, back stitching when you start and when you stop, because my grandma said so. My grandmother taught me all the sewing things, but the day she told me to stop looking at my needle was life-changing. I couldn't figure out how to keep my seam straight, and she said, stop looking at your needle, Tammy. Follow the edge of your fabric with the edge of your presser foot, and it really is a game changer. So if you're struggling with straight seams, that's all you need to do is follow the edge of your fabric with the edge of your presser foot. All right, we've sewn the borders down the sides. I'm gonna iron these, and then we're gonna sew the borders on the end. See, easy. I told y'all this was super easy and way cute. I love the fall colors, and you could easily make this double-sided, like Halloween on one side and Thanksgiving on the other, or Thanksgiving and Christmas, or back to school and Halloween. So now we're going to take a 3-inch strip and sew it down each end, just like we did the sides. Straight stitch, 1/4 inch seam, back stitching when you start and when you stop. My grandmother sewed for utility because she had 4 kids. She married young, and she sewed because it was necessary. And so that's the kind of sewing that I do, and that's the kind that I teach you every single day. Okay, we've sewn the end pieces on. The last time we did a quilt as you go, and this time we've just sewn the top of the table runner. Now the next step is really up to you. You're gonna put the front and the back together, and I'll walk you through what you can do. We've made the top of our table runner. All you're gonna do now is lay a pretty piece of fabric, whatever your back of your table runner is, pretty side down. Stitch all the way around, leave a hole, turn it right side out, and then top stitch, and you're done. Or you can take your table runner top and lay it on top of a piece of batting that's larger than mine, because mine's not large enough. Pin it down, and you can quilt it any way you want to. You can quilt along each seam. You can quilt in a diagonal. You can stitch in the ditch, whatever you want to do. And then after you've done that, lay your backing piece of fabric face down on it, sew all the way around, turn it right side out, top stitch, and you're done. Or you could lay your back piece of fabric face down, batting, table runner face up, and you could quilt it, and then you could bind the edges. You do whatever works best for you. My name is Tammy. I'm your favorite sewing teacher, and I would love for you to come sew with me.